February 13th. This is the Budget, Finance, and Administration Committee. We need to approve the minutes from our November 14th, 2017 meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion, any changes? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. We have some guests here today. This is not a regular council meeting, but being that you're already here, I am going to allow you to speak. So having said that, I'd like to amend the agenda to allow a short public comment session of about 15 minutes so these gentlemen can talk.
So motion.
Yeah, I need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Mr. Hubbard, please.
Council, Mulder. I'm here tonight to express my opinion on the county entertaining an offer to lease the Oconee County Rock Quarry. I'm not here for myself. I am here for all of the contractors and citizens of Oconee County. You sit up there at the council meetings and basically give away land and buildings to manufacturers and give them a huge tax breaks because you say we need more businesses in Oconee County for the taxpayers to have jobs. I understand we have to do this because of the tax rates in other states. But let's think about the blue-collar workers who are out there every day, who work in the construction, landscape, concrete, asphalt, and many other businesses who help this tax base in the county. You stand to lose a lot more if we are not longer in business here. Losing the quarry to a private entity will be the end to a lot of people's livelihoods. If a private entity leases a quarry, you and I both know that the price of rock will almost double for them to be able to make a profit. That will directly affect local businesses and competing without of county businesses, and will put a lot of people and their employees in the unemployment lines. Have you thought about the 19 or so employees that the rock crusher currently has? There are some of them that has given the county over 20 years of service. They have plans to retire from the county. Last year, y'all sent people home because of job cuts. There is no way you can place them in other departments. Again, you sent people home last year because of budget cuts and because they were not needed. The current employees have not had proper raises in many years. Yet you want to cut out an enterprise fund that actually makes money. Inflation goes up, but they just get forgotten about. Just like now, considering a lease that will make 19 good, hardworking employees jobless. The rock quarry is currently in the enterprise fund for the county that is making a profit on an annual basis. Last year, Oconee County entered into an agreement with the Orr family to purchase 54.8 acres for over $4 million over a 10-year period. At that time, it was sold to the taxpayers of Oconee that the county was purchasing this land so that they would have enough land to expand in the future so that this enterprise fund could continue to be successful, continue to generate revenue for the county in years to come. Why did you spend $4 million of the taxpayers' money if you plan on leasing the quarry to a private company? That alone doesn't make good business sense. How do you plan on making those payments, and who can guarantee that the leasee will make enough profit to make, this is just a number, but I think I'm pretty close, enough profit to make the $1.3 million lease payment? If they do not make timely payments, who will be made to make the land agreement payments? Yep, you're looking at them, the taxpayers of Oconee County. Have you thought about all of the rock that the road department uses, all of the rock that council gives away that currently does not cost you a dime? And have you thought about the 5 years down the road when the leasee comes to you and says, The equipment and the crusher are basically junk now. We can't pay this high rent any longer because of all the repairs that is needed. You will either have to renegotiate the lease to the smaller rent payment, or you will have to let the leasee walk away and leave you with the worn out and tattered equipment and a big hole in the ground to deal with. If this happens, the county will never be able to recover and get back on track again, making money from the quarry, and yet again, it will end up in the taxpayers' lap again. Thank you.
State your name for the record, if you don't mind.
David Hubbard with Hubbard Paving.
Does anybody else wish to make any comments at this point in time?
I'm Danny Hutchinson, Hutchinson Construction. A concern to me, David covered most everything, but the concern is the council is not following their mission statement. The mission statement to me is for the benefit of every citizen in Oconee County. If this firm that wants to lease the rock crusher has promised you these big bucks, who do you think is going to pay those? It's not that company. It's me. Everybody. That's right. We pay it. So that's the concern. Stay with your mission statement, the reason that you 5 members exist, and that's for the benefit and the protection of Oconee County citizens. Thank you.
Anybody else? Now's the time to speak up.
I'll speak up.
Thank you.
Appreciate the time to speak. I'm Robbie Lee, owner of Lee's Ground Covers, and we do a good bit of business and have for years through Oconee Quarry, and a lot of the reason we're able to be in business and employ the people we are now is because of the prices at the quarry. We understand inflation, and we understand having to pay our people that work there a fair rate. And personally, I'm probably like most of these guys out here. We want the best product we can get at the best price. We're willing to pay a little more for the product to take care of the guys that work there and stuff. But if you bring in a private enterprise, and I understand as y'all's job is to look at things from all aspects. Mr. Mueller, I can appreciate the fact that we're looking at the fact of having to spend maybe multi-millions of dollars to put in a new plant there or upgrade the equipment. So I understand we have to look at different ideas. What really bothers me is if we bring in someone, as David said a moment ago, we're going to have a 30 to 50% increase almost overnight. If we do that, that's going to put people like me out of business. We're not going to buy from there. We're going to have to travel outside the county to buy. And currently, we're going to go to another private individual or individual company, and I personally have a unique relationship at the quarry because I buy a lot of boulders and rocks that's not desirable to most places. And through that, most of the time, the quarry has no real money invested in that other than the cost of the land. They're not crushing it. They're not having to even dig it out most of the time. And with that being said, that money is basically free money back to the county. And if a private enterprise comes in that situation, then I'm sure that won't be an option anymore for us. So it will be devastating to our company. And we only have 9 employees, but those 9 employees will be looking for a job. And the whole mission statement of the county and the whole purpose of the county is to try to bring in jobs into this county. But another thing that bothered me a minute ago as they were making comments is if we do enter into a lease with someone, not only would we be faced with a situation that we're faced with now with a wore-out plant that needs upgrades, but where would we be on reclaiming that property? Whose place would it be to keep that property up to environment? I see you making notes there. I'm not sure that that's something someone's looked at. But that's something to look at, because right now I know that the county does a good job of trying to keep it up to DHEC standards, keep everything to MSHA standards, and to keep a good name and a good product over there. And with that being said, that's an expense that can fall back on the county. And as you know, when you deal with other government entities, that can get into some major fines. So I just would like to bring that to your attention and also look at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, well then, thank you very much, gentlemen, for showing up today. You can feel free to stay and listen to our budget meeting if you'd care. If not, we will see you later. All right, so next item on our agenda, development of priorities for inclusion into our strategic plan. How many of the commissions have, or committees have met so far?
2. We've had public safety meet, and I have thought of recommendation, by the way. I was just writing down all the questions they asked so I can address them with you later.
Oh, okay.
Public safety and transportation are the 2 that have been able to meet at this point. We still have real estate and planning to meet, one later this month and
The
one
real
in March.
estate today.
Yep, and then public planning is March 6th, I believe it is. First week of March or something like that is them, and then we're trying to schedule, when we get to the budget calendar, you'll see we're trying to schedule the actual overall strategic planning meeting
Right.
later in March, shortly thereafter.
The goals that we set in the Transportation Committee, can those be met with the current budget, I mean, with the anticipated budget for our roads department?
The 4 that I had identified coming out of that meeting, one is the crosswalk in front of Lakeview. That one will be satisfied here shortly. We met with Lakeview last week, the director out there. Kyle Reed and myself, we laid out a plan for not only the crosswalk, but some lighting improvements. We met with Blue Ridge, was out there Friday, I think it was. We gave them their instructions for some lighting improvements. We also have identified some initial gravel improvements we can make, and then in the springtime, summertime, we have a parking lot we're going to construct to the right of the building. In addition to a community garden, we're going to fence in some areas for a security standpoint. So we've got even more of an overall improvement plan that we've laid out and a schedule for that. So that, to answer your question, simply yes, the parking improvements and crosswalk will be taken care of. The scanning of plats is one that we don't know if we can satisfy this year. I'm trying to identify some money either this year or next year to bring somebody in. One of the ideas I had was talking to Voc Rehab. They have employment programs through Voc Rehab for people. So we'd look in maybe identifying some people there to come in through that program and help scan. So we're still working on that one. The simplified process for road approval and acceptance, there's really no monetary issue there. That is something that we are working on. We're looking at a modified road approval and acceptance ordinance in addition to an update to our subdivision road design ordinance to make it easier to meet some of the topographical challenges. So from a cost standpoint, I think that one can be satisfied. That one will just take some time. You know, it's not something we'll have ready in a week. It's going to take time to go through and amend all those, bring it back to committee, get approval for them and such. The 4th item I had on my notes from that meeting was Sewer South. We are busting our hump to try and be ready for that March deadline.
I know.
I called, and actually Davis and Floyd has been released today to begin construction drawings for that because we need them for the grant application. In addition to the cost estimates that we need for the grant application, Mr. Ritter is telling me. I've talked with Chris Eliezer. As soon as we get those things, they can do their cost to serve analysis and rate study. So we've got a short period of time to get all that done, but we are pushing as hard as we can to get that done. So, you know, unless we get the grant, then we obviously can't meet that from a financial standpoint.
Yeah, I get that. What about the road by the treasurer's office?
That one's on this year's. It was
Okay,
not
it was not
identified
for
for
next
next
time.
year. The only thing we're waiting on is we still have not received our DOT encroachment permit. I've called some people in a higher authority that can reach out to DOT to try and help influence that. We're still waiting on our encroachment permit for Bounty Lane. We still haven't received that one. So we are pushing like we can, like crazy to try and get those approvals. So this one is on our priority list. As a matter of fact, we had talked about, now that the weather has delayed us out at Golden Corner, can we go ahead and start some of the off right-of-way improvements out here, removing trees, grading, and do everything we can off of the right-of-way of DOT to be ready to work inside the right-of-way once we get the encroachment permit. Our priority right now was Golden Corner. I've given instructions last week for them to button that thing down, stabilize it, and let's just wait till better weather. And then we can start working on some of these smaller projects in the meantime.
And so the grading was completed at Bounty Land, but you can't move any further than that at
No,
this
because we
point?
can't cut the driveway in.
Can't get in
We
there.
can't get our construction permit because we don't have
Okay.
encroachment approval. So, as a matter of fact, we're gonna go ahead and lay the bank back anyway and get started, so. We're not cutting the encroachment in, we're just gonna lay the bank back.
Okay. All right, public safety then?
Public safety, they were more talkative in that meeting. I have recycling center improvements, that's on this year's, for the physical improvements. Changing the mindset, I've already talked with Ms. Brock about putting together an increased marketing budget and an increased marketing plan, across multiple disciplines to try and get the message out. So we're putting proposals together for that. We can't meet that one this year, because we just don't have the advertising money. That'll have to go into next year's budget. Using the landfill, information that it's, filling up, reusing as part of that marketing plan, the hauling fees versus recycling, some of the other comments were made. So that'll be a big marketing push that'll go into next year's budget, hopefully. The next item was an ambulance service expansion to other areas of the county. I think that's gonna be a more difficult one to say that we can achieve financially until we know what kind of a plan we're talking about. So we talked about the EMS improvement plan that Charlie was asked to put together. So it was identified we need to continue working on that, and we are. Deputy investigators, they increased the number that we had talked about, the backlog of investigations, the number of investigations coming in versus investigators. That's on you guys to decide whether we can fund additional investigators in next year's budget. Expansion of youth activities with the sheriff. We talked about mentoring programs to identify at-risk, looking at other successful inner-city programs that the sheriff might be able to implement, and then develop some kind of a youth mentor program through volunteer action. To me, that's more of a long-term goal than it is a short-term trying to implement those kind of programs and see the result. I don't know what kind of financial support that's gonna need, to be honest with you, until a program is proposed and the sheriff has kind of bought into it. No work's been done on that, obviously, until we kind of finalize it as one of our goals. So really, financially, nothing can be done this year. The recycling message can be done in next year's budget through increased advertising. The ambulance service expansion, we won't know until we look more of a finalized plan when Charlie and his crew, or Chief King and his crew are finished. The deputy investigators won't be accomplished unless you guys add the positions and the money in next year's budget. And the development of the youth mentor program is still early. We haven't begun, so I can't give you any information there.
Okay.
And if I missed anything, I apologize, but I think I tried to capture everything that was discussed during this committee meeting.
Okay, so we still have real estate, planning, the Ag Commission. When are they meeting?
I have theirs, actually. It was delivered to my desk today. I brought it with me, just in case. Say it was brought to me today, and I thought I put it in here. I think I attached it to the back of these. Yep. I haven't read it. It was actually just placed on my desk, and I put it in my stack. It was sent to Ms. Brock this morning. 3 goals listed here. Provide as much assistance to the farm center for roadside signage and to create and post signs along corridors in the county that speak to the economic impact of agriculture. Number 2, create and execute a marketing and public education campaign that focuses on agriculture with the intent of garnering interest and support for agriculture and possibly encourage new people to create new farms. And then 3, attend and present to county council meetings the impact economically of agriculture and refine goals in an attempt to attain a budget for the Ag Board's activities from the county. Those were the 3 that were identified by them based on your request.
Say that again about the farm center signage? Farm center
Provide as much assistance to the farm center for roadside
signage.
and to create and post signs along corridors in the county that speak to the economic impact of agriculture in Oconee County.
Here's something we haven't heard from before. Okay, very good. Okay, let's look at our budget calendar.
Okay, you got copies? Can you hand them out for me real quick? We've taken a stab at a draft calendar, and we tried to coordinate these with county council calendars as well. So Ms. Liddell Price is handing out the draft calendar for you guys to review. We did not incorporate January, obviously. We've identified tonight's meeting for budget finance in February, our regular meetings, and with the finalization of the committee strategic planning sessions with planning and economic development on March 6th, we have identified March 16th as a possible strategic planning date, the week following that, the planning and economic development committee meeting. And then really getting into the budget discussions.
No,
and-
no, 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 no.
No,
Not
no.
Friday, the 16th on March. I'm not going to be here. That's spring break
Spring
at
break.
AU,
Oh,
and
spring
I'm going to
break.
visit my dad.
All right, so can we look at maybe the 8th or 9th, or the 23rd, move it up a week or back a week?
I would prefer to move it up a week to the 9th. Hang on just a second. I brought my calendar with me. January, February, March. Yeah, I would prefer to move it up to the 9th unless somebody else has something pressing on
I'd rather
yours.
have a second. That's just me.
Because our spring break's the week before, right?
Our spring break's not till the end of March,
Oh, that's right, I'm thinking
Yeah,
April.
Thirty.
it
I'm thinking
yeah, it
April.
was,
33. I'd rather have it the second. I think it gives us a little bit more head in front of the meetings.
March 2nd?
Yes.
Unfortunately, planning and economic development is not going to meet till March 6th, and we need them to meet and discuss their committee-level goals before we bring
You
everybody
mean
together as
March-
a group.
You mean
Could we
March
meet,
8th?
no, I was gonna say, I'm out of town that week. Is it possible that we move up the, Planning and Economic Development Committee meeting to Tuesday, the 27th? Does that work for,
yeah, he's got his thumbs up.
Fine for me?
or any other day of the week if that doesn't work for somebody?
That's me, you,
And Glenn. Glenn, does the 27th work for you?
Fine with me.
Okay, so the 27th will be planning. And then we're going to have Friday the 2nd, then our strategic planning retreat? Yes, Paul?
I'm
She's
sorry,
checking the
which day?
calendar, too.
Friday the 2nd?
Friday the 2nd. Yeah, that works fine for me.
David Root? You're okay?
She good. About the second. So the chambers is clear of both those days.
Okay, so let's then do the strategic planning retreat at 9 a.m. on Friday the 2nd.
Okay?
And that's at 9 a.m. Okay. All right. Okay, so your spring break is that first week of April.
Yeah.
Regular council meeting, budget finance.
We moved, that was the count, that April 3rd was the one me and Mr. Mulder.
That's
had
right, we
requested.
pushed everything down. Yeah, that
I
works.
believe that's still on that calendar, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
It
Okay.
is.
Thank you. Me and Mr. Mulder and our children really appreciate that.
No, no problem.
My children more than me.
All right,
This would be the first spring break they got to do something. Typically, we have meetings, so this will be the first spring break my kids have had that they got to really go do something other than just a couple of days.
Well, you could have always asked.
I know, but I didn't feel comfortable. They're
All right.
excited.
This is you're safe, Scott.
Once I got you on here, I was like,
Safe
you
space.
like
got
you
the
would believe. He's got
kids.
kids, he's got kids.
I got
What's life
kids.
doing?
Actually, I was more in fear of my wife than my kids. Just
You know this is
putting
being
that.
recorded.
Yeah, I know. She's probably watching it too. Hey. She knows I fear her. It's okay.
So you'll notice that on April 17th, we slated and talked with the school district about them presenting their budget at that point in time. I will probably be ready that same night. I'm still working on it. I have not, you can see, I have not identified my budget presentation on there yet. I'm either looking at that same night or another night soon, a little later than that, so that we can get started. We've got first reading slated for May 15th, and you can see the rest of the dates. This is an older one, didn't we put them both on? Yeah, it's on the same night. This is the new one. Second reading and public hearing on June 5th, with the final reading on June 19th, with plenty of time to schedule a special meeting if for some reason we want to modify the budget. At third reading, we can reschedule and approve it at that point. So I'm looking probably the same night as the school district to present my budget around that same time, so.
Madam Chair, if I may. Quick question. Well, that's not really a question. I would like for us to continue the talks like we had last year with the school district prior to their budget presentation. Maybe me and you just kind of keep open lines of communication, as well as Mr. Mulder in there. If we could do something in that March timeframe after our strategic planning, I'd like at least one or two times to talk. That way, it's not a presentation straight to us. If you would.
So you wanted to invite them here?
No,
Just a
I mean,
meeting
we
or
can
go over
do,
there?
we just, yeah, I mean, just us, we can go over there and just set up a meeting time with them to sit down with them and,
Okay, so before
Sometime.
April 17th, but after our strategic plan?
yeah.
Okay, well, let me call them and find out what are good dates and times, and
Okay.
I'll get back with you.
You know
on
my
that.
schedule, so we'll work it out on your teaching schedule.
Okay,
I think
that's
that would-
fine,
That would help
that's fine.
get us all on the same page, or at least in the book.
Okay, well, I think we can go ahead and approve this budget calendar unless anybody else has any changes to recommend or make. Do I hear a motion to approve?
Approved as stated.
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. Okay, very good. All right, FY 2019 budget discussion.
At this point, it's gonna be real short and sweet. I was hoping to have
That's
had more revenue numbers for you and present you some kind of indication of where we're headed, but I don't. So we're still working on that. They're putting together the reports that we need for the fiscal analysis, at this point. So I really don't have much of a discussion. I usually put those on there on every meeting, just in case there's something I need to bring up, but tonight I don't have anything. We're still working on identifying the capital needs and a number of the other goals that have been discussed in the past that have been unfunded. So we'll be ready at a later date to present those numbers. So it's pretty short and sweet on that one. But I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Didn't you say that we need maybe one more hangar at the airport to make it self-sufficient?
We would need, well, no, sir. If we added another set of hangars at the airport, if you add the capital cost of that in, it would take us the other direction to be self-sufficient. Right now, we're right at the net zero gain. We're right at the break-even point. If you add in construction costs, it'll take us below the break-even point. But we're at that kind of net zero gain right now.
What other services do we have outside selling fuel that'll take us up to where it is self-sufficient?
Well, we have a number of fees. I mean, you can, the main sale that we have is rental of hangars, rental of field space, and the fuel sales, and then we have special event fees. We have long-term parking fees, We've got the rental for the FBO, which is the hangar we rent out for the mechanic services. And that's pretty much it from a service standpoint. We do have an agreement with a rental car agency, but we don't see any revenue from that. That's just a service standpoint. We have started a shuttle this year. We've done away with the private shuttle, and we started our own, but that's not a big money maker. We're hoping just to break even on that one, but we are trying to improve the service that the people are getting. We sell some goods in there, you know, T-shirts and things, but the dominant is the rental of the hangars and the fuel is our main revenue.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
get back to the airport, the director's out there doing a great job, you know, they gave me, my appointee to the airport commission came by and gave me a list of accomplishments they made. It's pretty, they doing small things, you know, and the small things are making a big improvements. And one thing that they brought up, and of course my stepson flies for, private, corporation. And the thing is, if they're gonna bring a plane in, like that brand new King Air he flies, we gotta have a plane. They don't like, if they're gonna stay overnight, they do not like that thing sitting out. And at some point, can the airport get a bond on their own to build hangars since, they're almost self-sufficient?
I'm gonna answer that in two ways. I'm gonna say no. Only they can. Yes, we could get a revenue bond for the airport if we so chose to. I'm gonna say no because the fact they're not gonna generate enough surplus revenue to pay the bond back. So right now, let's say you make $1 and spend $1, and you go to the bank and say, hey, I wanna borrow $5 in order to do something. And you're gonna generate another 50 cents in revenue. Because of that's something you're gonna do, but your payment's gonna be $1, the bank's gonna look at you and say, nope, there's no way we're gonna loan you that money, you can't afford to pay it back. Same basic concept. Right now, we're at kind of a break even, it's paying for itself. But if we add a $200,000 bill or a payment every year to bond those hangars, and we only make $30,000 a year on the revenue from those hangars, and I'll use exact numbers. Our hangar rent, let's say we build a T hangar for 10 airplanes, a 10 space hangar. And our hangar rent is $235 a month, times 10, that's $23.50 a month, times 12, that's about a $30,000 a year revenue. A T hangar is going to cost you $1 million to build. Pay it back over 10 years, that's a $100,000 payment. You just lost $65,000 of money every year. So you're not going to be able to get a special source or a special revenue bond to pay for it. You're going to have to use a general obligation bond in order to pay for the airport improvements. What you can do is you can subsidize the general obligation bond by transferring all the new revenue that you get from that one hangar to your debt service fund. It's very similar to what we did when we did phase 1 development of the Oconee Industry and Technology Park. We borrowed, was it $2.5 million, I think it was, to make the improvements to phase 1. Well, the economic development millage, we identified enough money in there to transfer to make the payment on that bond so that it didn't go into the taxpayer's pocket. It came out of that, or increased the debt millage, it came out of the economic development fund. Same basic concept. You could take the 30 grand you make a year on those 2 hangars, show a transfer over to the debt service fund, but you're still gonna have to make up the $70,000 to make the $100,000 payment.
Yeah, see, at the airport, we're at a crossroads.
Oh, I argued last year when we put together that bond plan, if you remember, I put in there, we need to build some T hangars.
But
I agree.
Well, the airport you got 2 things. He told me you fly in there, in that King Air. Well, insurance, technically FAA rules, you got enough runway to take off with a full load of fuel. Insurance company says, So then Anderson, who has the better instrument approaches, and a little bit longer runway, they go there whenever they go on business, or else they fly into Greenville. We got the land on the other side, the Shiloh Road, and people with a Hawker, which eats up a little bit more runway than a King Air, needs even more space, and a Hawker's heavier, so that when they touch down, they need a thicker runway. And that's some things that we this year's budget maybe no, but in the future, we need to plan to get bigger planes in here, because sooner or later, companies are gonna, and there are rumblings out there already, not with ones I'm affiliated with, but other companies that I don't service, for air freight. And
The only way you'll end up getting bigger planes is to expand the length of the runway.
that's exactly what I'm leading to.
And the only way we can do that is to relocate Shiloh Road
You know, King Shaw Road. But everybody says, well, it's gonna cost a lot of money.
or build a tunnel.
Nah, they gonna let, the FAA will let.
No, for their cars. We can build a tunnel for the cars.
No, but I'm talking about inside, somebody blow the tunnel and blow the runway up. But we need to look at this, cause you know, you talk about tourism. Well, one airplane flying in, that equals like, maybe 2-3 busloads of tourists, just one touch and go. And these people flying Hawkers and King Airs and, Citations, they could spend the money. They don't mind paying big money to the county, and plus, it makes the county look good. Hey, I can fly my corporate plane in here, and, it looks good all the way around. These people are the ones that can dump a lot of money into our economy. So that's something we can't do immediately, but we need to look at doing down the road.
It's part of our airport's capital improvement plan that we have to update every year for the FAA.
And eventually, at some point, we're gonna have to look at, and that's gonna really be expensive, some kind of a tower. Cause you get bigger and bigger, and maybe one day somebody is gonna, maybe Delta, somebody will come in with will get enough in for a shuttle service. Cause executives don't mind paying the money to fly.
They'd also build a hangar on your site too. If you wanted to lease land and let corporate companies come in and build a hangar.
Well, what happened to that one, was it Baxter, whatever happened with him?
He's going to Anderson, I think it is,
He's going to Anderson?
because we don't have a hangar.
Yeah, he's got a Hawker.
Okay, so right now, the airport in current year's budget's about $944,000. And with all the major revenue, there's some small concessions and things like that, we're about $915,000 in revenue. So you're right there where it's pretty much paying for itself. Its cost to the taxpayers is very, very minimal. So if you add a debt payment on top of that, and then what little bit you get, because your total rent revenue right now for your T hangars is $122,000, and that's for all of them. So if you only add 10 more, you're not gonna generate enough to make the payment, so you're going the wrong way from a cost standpoint. What I think you remember, Mr. Hart, is what I said was if you don't factor in the capital cost, then the additional money coming in would help to make you whole. But you gotta figure, that's where if we were gonna use the general obligation bond to pay for them, and you only looked at it from an operational budget standpoint, then yes, we would still be breaking even, if not a little bit better. But you gotta factor in that capital cost somewhere. So there, I agree 100%, we need them. I've been arguing for them. It's on our capital improvement plan for the airport. We just gotta pay for it, be willing to pay for it. Unless we wanna let somebody private come in and build private ones, and lease the land to them, and then they can rent them out. Somebody would love to do that. There's an airport in Mississippi, they don't, the owner of the city, when they don't own a hangar, it's all owned by private people, and they rent it out. There's no revenue for us though, but at least there's space for airplanes.
But we're trying to attract the bigger corporate people.
That's
that
right,
will-
and they buy a lot of fuel.
And they think nothing of, making a flight, let's, we go rent a King Air for $2,100, $2,400 an hour to fly somewhere. These are the kind of tourists, you know, you need to cater to. Cause these tourists, they decide, well, I like this here, maybe I'll locate a corporate office here, maybe I'll, bring a business in here. Well, they don't, like Schulte, he flies from one business to the next business, to Michigan, Tennessee, you know, he doesn't drive.
I agree.
And that's something, you know, we need to look at.
I agree.
Can I put in my 2 cents too?
Sure.
What, we had talked about looking at raising the rent for these hangars. And what did it go up to? Or where did it go? What's the rate of increase?
Right now, they are at, we went up the year prior. Right now,
Okay.
we're at 235
$235 a month, right?
for the larger unit, and then we're at 160 for a smaller unit. And here's a 270 for hangar rental. So some of the newer ones are higher than the older ones. So the unit E is actually $270 a month. So I think they actually went up about 10 or 15%. Don't quote me on that, but I think it's about 10 or 15% of how much they went up. Now, 10 or 15% of that is not much, but on a monthly basis.
I mean, are we in line with the,
We're very competitive. We're actually a little lower. We purposefully keep all of our rates a little lower than everybody else. Not a lot lower, but a little bit lower. To be competitive, like our fuel, we try to keep it at or below where everybody else is. So if it's a transient, they'll come here instead of going somewhere else to get their fuel as they move on. But we just went up. We're very competitive.
well, we've got a waiting list of how many planes?
Quite a few, 60 at one time. Now, how many of those are still serious? I don't know.
Yeah.
Probably of those 20 to 25 are serious.
I just wonder, how much more could we raise rent and have be still competitive? Be in line with everybody else? Are we talking about an appreciable
I
difference?
don't
or-
feel comfortable answering that unless Mr. Garrison and the commission help advise me on it. I
Yeah.
don't know. I don't own a plane, I don't rent, so I couldn't
Sure.
tell you what's acceptable.
Okay,
But I do know that we are competitive with surrounding areas.
okay. Oh, I'm sure we're competitive. We got a 60 some odd plane waiting list, so obviously somebody wants to put their plane in there. It's not too high. Okay. How do we get a consideration from them? Do we need a request out of planning and development?
I just asked Jeff to speak with his commission and discuss
Okay.
rates and whether or not we need to go up on any of them.
And I'll talk with my representative and just ask, is that something we should look at?
Fair enough. I'll be glad to talk to Jeff and have
Okay.
the commission discuss it.
Because obviously we need more hangars, and if we have more revenue, we can build more, maybe.
Not that much. I don't think we'll be able to raise it that much.
Well, I mean, we might be able to bond against it, as you mentioned. No? Okay.
Your total revenue for all the hangars you've got now is only 122 a year. You're talking about $100,000 a year to build a hangar. You're not gonna raise it, double.
Right.
I don't think.
Unless we're half the price of everybody else. And we're
I can
not.
tell you that.
Okay, all right.
But we'd be glad to look.
Okay.
What'd you say a hangar would cost, $100,000?
Probably close to, the estimate we got, and this has been a little while ago, okay, was close to $1 million, like 900, and that 966,000 for a 10-bay hangar. Now, that includes the grading, where it's gonna have to go. There's a hole that needs to be filled in. And we have the dirt, but we gotta move it. It's gonna include grading, all the paving, and the construction. So it's just under $1 million turnkey.
And we already got a bunch of dirt on the other side.
That's right.
The road, we gotta get rid of it.
We just gotta get it moved. And we actually have a grant that we've submitted to the FAA to expand the ramp on that end, that will also hopefully provide us some dirt as well. But yeah, that's total. It's gonna take some grading work and some paving and everything else. Jeff's got a great plan. The commission worked with the consultants and put together a great plan on phasing those in.
Okay, the last thing on our agenda is, once again, discussion regarding impact fees. Mr. Root has sent us some information regarding that. I feel the other day when or rather Sheriff Crenshaw had spoken to us about his need for deputies, he basically made the argument for impact fees. Mr. Root, would you care to chime in here, pros and cons?
I tell you that, I don't know what they asking for it, I guess it's a 5-page outline on how to do it, what it can be used for. The biggest pro, and it's really just out of my realm as a legal expert, but,
Give me the biggest con, not the biggest pro. I know what the pros are.
always is that the developers and the builders are against it, and it's gonna be, has to be done, it has to be outsourced in large part. It's a professionally capital improvements plan as well as essentially what this kind of a feasibility study that goes along with it are based on engineering, mathematical, and general. How much that costs, I don't know, but I'm guessing between have that cost to make to see how justified it is. Certainly a lot of counties do it in different because the general formula that we have to bear in mind is this is not just to ubiquitously lay out and fund the county, but it is to, you've got an improvement, a development that's going in place X, and because of that development, there's going to be a new burden on the services we provide to place X. And so we're going to impose an impact fee on that new development to cover these new services or new facilities, so they have to be very much tied to one another.
But could those be put in place after the fact? Does the impact fee have to be in place before the development goes in, or can it be levied after the development is in?
Just before the development.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Root at this point in time?
Yes, one thing. David, on these impact fees, does the sheriff, open your eyes up? You build these things, and you're building, for student housing, and it's costing him. Can the impact fees be extended as long as that place is there to cover for say Mike's gotta hire 3 deputies to cover that?
It's really just, it's for facilities, not operation and maintenance, and it's not for expansion, really, of existing or improvement. Really, so much as it is. Question correctly.
Well, yeah, well, then the question we need to ask ourselves is, these people are putting this stuff in, student housing, drunk parties. The sheriff just dealt with another thing here in the county a couple of weeks ago, ties up a bunch of deputies. How are we gonna cover this? We can't expect the people of my district, Edna's district, or wherever, to be footing the bill for something that, it's not any fault of the sheriff. These people are committing these crimes, but we gotta cover ourselves. We can't say, well, we built this student housing thing, or this apartment complex, or whatever it is, and the sheriff comes to us and says, by the way, guys, they're running me ragged down there. They didn't even give me a dedicated parking space for the ambulance and the deputy sheriff there. We're down there so much. We need to look at this in the future, because it's one problem, or not problem, one situation of a bunch of people in there on top of each other, and then it comes back to haunt the budget, the council, and the sheriff because the sheriff is a lightning rod whenever something goes wrong. Well, Mike, why wouldn't Mike down there, why wouldn't he personally stop at all this? And people, when it comes to law enforcement, people want action right now. So we gotta figure out a way to, these people come in and build this thing, we gotta ask ourselves, you know, how can we possibly offset the impact of this housing, the added, problems with the sheriff, maybe in the future, sanitation, garbage collection, stuff like that, without saying, well, these people are getting the benefit and everybody else has gotta pay for it. And that's a hard question to ask, but we're gonna have to ask ourselves eventually.
Even harder to answer.
And yes, it is.
All right. Other business, do we
Hang
still
on,
wanna?
I still will state that I'm against impact fees.
I noticed you shaking your head, so I got that loud and clear, but I didn't see all the way to Paul Kane.
I have to agree. You know, when somebody comes in here and invests $50 million,
So, spend a few extra 100,000 for their deputy. I mean, until you give me some water pipes at my end, I'm not giving any more deputies in places for future residents.
I didn't say anything about deputies. I'm just mentioning from a development standpoint. There's things that we can do to require them to help with security. I know we've talked a good bit about that, about their security officers and everything like that to come into there. But to impact fee a developer, from what I see, is very poorly thought of across the board, not to mention the amount of taxes and everything that they pay on there is really what we're after at the end of the day. So if you run down the road of impact fees, you're going to fee in lieu of your taxes to cover the impact fees. So at the end of the day, you're going to be, you know, that's just my personal opinion.
yeah, I mean, while we're trying to attract investment, I mean, these people pay taxes, obviously. So,
Lots of taxes.
yeah, I mean,
I know,
somebody's
but once
massive.
again, we're not taking care of the residents who are already here, and we're giving all the breaks to those new ones coming in. So until I see some improvement with infrastructure for the ones who need it now, who already have been living here for 10, 15 years, 20 years, 25 years, whatever the case may be, I can't see having their taxes used to fund deputies or fire or whatever in the new areas that are being built. I mean, you always seem to be focused on everything new that's coming in and not at all focused on those of us who are already here that are lacking. So that is my personal point of view.
I'm focused on that too. And I agree that we need to plan. But we can't say, all right, we need impact fees and that will solve the problem.
I didn't say it would solve the problem, but it would certainly help.
Well, planning will help us develop plans to figure out where we want this growth to occur, and also what our current infrastructure assets can handle. And then if those are inadequate, then we figure out what do we need to raise those infrastructure, whether it be public safety, utilities, roads, and we work from there. I mean, we can't.
Oh, I've been begging for water pipes for 3 years, going on 4 years now. How much more studying of the northern part of the county do you need to know that we need water there? Oh, by the way, I can do laundry this week because we've been flooded. You know, I mean, I've been talking about that for years now. That's not something new.
But I mean, what I've heard you say many times is you moved here because you wanted to get away from some of the development. And we know that development follows infrastructure. So, I mean, you moved here, you moved to that area knowing that there wasn't water there, and you said you don't want additional development, and now you're saying, I want water. Well, there's going to be development up there if we put infrastructure in. That's what we're talking about with Sewer South. There's going to be development when that infrastructure is put in the ground. We are anticipating that. So, I mean, I hear what you're saying, but you can't have it both ways.
You can have growth. What I don't want is rampant growth. excessive growth, growth out of control. You can have growth. I don't mind having a few neighbors.
Sure. No,
Okay.
I don't either, but I'm just saying, I feel like we need to plan for that before we just run lines and say, all right, what impact will that have on the north end of the county if we're just gonna run water up there? I don't think we should just run it without doing an analysis of that, so.
And if you run water lines, the ability to somebody to bring them from a water line to the house, I have natural gas that runs half a mile from my house. It's $1,900 to bring it to my house. I don't have other people on my street, so it's just me. I'm not gonna pay, that is a sum of money that an individual would have to pay to get water to their house. One comment you made that kind of upset me is you stated that I don't focus on current citizens. And I think the citizens of my district and the time that I spend in doing stuff would completely disagree with that statement, that I don't care about my citizens.
I never used that word. Don't put words in my mouth. I did not say you didn't care. I said we weren't focused on bringing infrastructure to those who need it, who are already here, but we seem to be giving all the breaks and all the goodies to people who we don't even know, who haven't even moved in yet, whose buildings haven't even been built yet. That's what I was saying. But anyway, let's not get into this argument. It's not worth the argument. We still need to amend the agenda to have an executive session to discuss the Lakeside Lodge annexation. Let's get that
Well,
done.
it's an economic development matter related to Lakeside Lodge. We're not talking about the annexation, we're talking about the economic development.
Oh, okay. So, do I have a motion to recess to executive session for the purpose of discussing an economic?
Scott, can we do that directly after real estate? I can whiz through real estate, I promise you. I know Mr. Gibson is the only speaker I have on there.
If he can just give us 20 minutes, we'll be as quick as we can.
You okay?
I hate to
Thank
ask
you.
you to do it, but we really need to clean
That's
this
fine.
up.
That's perfect.
I'll try to keep us to 20 minutes and then we'll be out.
So moved.
Huh?
Second.
Second? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion to reconvene.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
No action was taken in executive session. None is necessary. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The Oconee County Real Estate Facilities and Land Management Meeting, February 13th, 2018. It is 7:08. I need the approval of the November 14th, 2017 meetings.
Motion to approve?
Can I get a second? I'll second. All in favor?
I wasn't here.
Aye. All right. The first thing we have on there is development of priorities for inclusion of a strategic plan. Some big things on my agenda, and I guess they kind of carry on from one year to the next, but the Westminster Magistrate is in definite need of some facilities. We have looked at all options, including buying property, renovating, additional property. It seems to me that the best manner to do the magistrate is actually build that, and I know we had talked briefly in our having ongoing talks with the city of Westminster into actually having a combined multi-use facility on there. It is a definite need in there from talking with the magistrate and to actually visiting the facility. It is, to me, one of those areas that leaves us a little open when we have people in there and in the same room. And if you haven't been to that magistrate, I invite you to go by there just to kind of see what we're looking at. So that to me is a number one priority, and I do appreciate the city of Westminster being open with us and working with us on there. The second one I had is Pine Street security here. This has also been on this before, and to at least do some additional security in this area, I'd like to see some things on that. And my third one is park upgrades and ADA compliance in those parks is a definite must from the bathroom facility, especially on the ADA. There's several park plans that we have looked at and great understanding that funding is an issue on there. However, the ADA compliant bathrooms to me is a must on those, and that would be the first thing over continued park upgrades on there. Anybody else have anything that they had for plan or anything that they wanted to see on there?
No, I did want to see the Westminster Magistrate issue resolved.
Yep.
That was my number one.
Yeah, that's number one. Mr. Mulder, do you have anything on that you care to add with that?
Mr. Chair, I'll be glad to kind of talk about that a little bit. Now, we've been, looking at that particular location for a couple of years now. We had a facility report completed a number of years ago where we looked at a number of options, one of which, at that particular time, I think Mr. Lord was with the city looking at the joint space. We looked at a couple of renovation spots, and we looked at constructing new. So we've had all of those particular options studied. The difficulty with trying to find something to renovate, I'm just going to walk through these, is the cost of bringing it into code compliance and ADA accessibility with an existing building there. It's just been too cost prohibitive. So then we looked at the construction of a new facility, and we felt like from a cost per square foot standpoint, that was the best alternative. We also have reviewed the cost per square foot alternative of joining with the city of Westminster. That also is a good alternative, and to contribute funds to them and partner with them and build a new space. So it's very similar to what it would cost us, just maybe cheaper than go out and build something brand new. The difficulty we had a couple of years ago, and when this study was done, was there was no formal direction or nor formal approval to move forward with the Westminster City Hall renovation. So we didn't know how long it was going to be. Obviously, Mr. Lord's no longer there. Mr. Carter, who we've worked with very closely and do great work with, I think they're actually, he's here this evening, they've got more definitive plans to move forward now with that Westminster City Hall renovation that could give us a more near future solution to partner with them. They've gotten so close now, they're actually asking the county, and this is one of the reasons why he's here, we want to share this, they want the county to submit a letter of approval, agreement, or something, pledging the 500,000 or whatever dollar figure we want to pledge to assist with those renovations, so they can build that into their plans and finances going forward, if I'm correct. So they're actually at that point now where they're asking the county to show a commitment to the renovation plan, and that's why I wanted to put it on the agenda this evening to kind of talk about, even beyond the strategic plan priorities, is we need to give them an answer. We've looked at temporary solutions. I know the fire department's been thrown out there. We have studied that. I've talked with Chief King. We've looked at the schedule. We've looked at the calendar. We've talked with the magistrate on the time that he's going to need it. And it's just not going to work. They both cannot share that same space with the amount of hours we have to operate. They're going to need it way too much, and it's going to conflict. So that's just not a possibility. We've looked at renting and leasing space as a possibility. I've even talked to a couple of developers about doing a build-to-suit. They come in, they build it, and then we rent it back, lease it back over a time period, and then we buy it out at the end. So we've looked at that option. That's even expensive because you're looking at $4,000 to $5,000 a month in added rent. So you're still at $48,000 to $60,000 a year additional cost over a certain time period. So we really think that the City of Westminster option is a great option, or building something new ourselves is a great option, and that's open for you guys to discuss.
Okay, and I know we do have that in the discussion item, so we'll move that into there so we can go straight in there. Anybody else have anything on that? Okay. Discussion items, Mr. Stanley Gibson, appreciate your patience. If you'll come give us a quick update on the Farm Center, go ahead.
Can we come back to those after you go?
Yes, yeah. I had it down in the discussion regarding, so that was the third item I had in there.
I wanted to come back to the ADA compliance if you don't mind.
Yes, we can,
Okay,
yeah,
great.
yep.
All right, I'm Stanley Gibson. I currently serve as the chairman of the Farm Center Board. First off, thank you for your support over the years and hopefully continued support as we move forward with the Farm Center. Thankfully, the interest has been completed. We thought that maybe we were the redheaded stepchild when it came to that, but after listening to Mr. Mulder talk, I think maybe DOT is an equal opportunity ignorer. So we don't feel quite as bad on that now. One of the things we're planning to do is when I talked to Mr. Davis earlier, I told him, I said, you'd think on 58 acres, there'd be at least an acre or two that was flat, but that doesn't seem to occur up there. So we're going to do our best to try to work with the topography of the site, so we have to do as little grading as possible. Also, with it being up on that knoll, it kind of gives us a focal point there at the top of the hill, so we're going to use that as much as we possibly can. We do plan to construct permanent structures at the Farm Center for use during the fair as well as other events. You can see in front of you a site plan or master plan of some of the things that we have in mind. I'm sure we'll have to do some switching around a little bit to make it fit the topography of the site a little bit more. We were hoping to start out with a pole barn or something like that for the livestock, but we're running into a little bit of difficulty with that with the requirement of engineered drawings. I know we talked with the folks down the hall here and got a copy of a pole barn there, but it was like a 32 by 40, and that doesn't quite meet the needs of what we're looking for a livestock facility there. So that's something that we're definitely open to any advice that anybody may have to help with that. We'll also hopefully soon be putting in the amphitheater. We've got a natural bowl shape there on the back side of the property that will work for that real well. Also, that's a kind of a low low-cost thing we can put in that we can get, I think, great returns from on a quick basis there. We're currently working with Blue Ridge Electric, getting the power installed. The engineers have started working on that. Also with Seneca Light and Water, we've got the water tap marked for them to put in. The sewer may be a little bit trickier because talking to them today, I think that's the joint sewer authority line through there, not a Seneca sewer line. So I'm going to meet with them again tomorrow afternoon and try to come up with some ideas on what we can do, especially short term, before we get into the major building of it. Presently, we have planned events for this year. The farmers market we hope to open in April at the site. We'll be having a high school rodeo the last weekend of April. That's the 27th and 28th. And then we're going to be working with Oakway Tractor. They'll be doing a hay day out there at a time to be determined. A lot of that's going to be determined by how the grass grows and how quickly we can get all that done. And then, of course, the fair will be out there September 25th through the 29th. There's a lot of interest in outside folks of coming in and using the facility once we get things up and running. One of the, I think, biggest drawing points that we have is if once we can get an arena set up there, that we'll have a lot of folks that will want to come in. We can have barrel racing events, a lot of different things. One thing we did do this year with our liability insurance is we built in events like rodeos and barrel racing and such so that we're covered by having those events. When we sponsor those events, we're already covered, so we don't have to worry about trying to search for insurance and that sort of thing. So hopefully that'll take care of some of the headaches that come along with that. We have applied for some small grants for some infrastructure funding, and then we'll be looking at some larger grants over the coming year to get into more of the larger building and set up as we move forward. The farmers market we are planning to move the market building from the thrift property out to the new site. Again, we hope to open in April with we're looking at the possibility of, rather than a Saturday morning market, doing a Friday evening market. Gwen McPhail was able to secure a $12,000 grant for the market. We'll use that to offer education in the health benefits of fresh fruits and vegetables, food preservation techniques, using high tunnels and biodynamic gardening to extend the growing season, teaching small farmers and small business management and social media marketing, and then using rain gardens and native vegetation to decrease erosion. And these workshops will be held during the farmers market, so that will also help bring people into the market there. So that's a quick summary. I know y'all have been here a long time, so if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer any questions that you may have. And we
When
look
did you say
forward
the
to
high
moving
school
on.
rodeo was?
Pardon
When
me?
did you say the high school rodeo was?
It's the last weekend of April.
Okay, thanks.
When is y'all's next board meeting that y'all have? How often have y'all been meeting?
We will meet the 20th will be our next meeting,
Okay.
next week.
Will you send me a note, and I'm sure Ms. Kamick may want that as well, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Be good. Anything else, anybody else?
Stan, do you have an electronic copy of the master plan?
Oh, I do?
Can you email it to me, please?
Yeah. It's not color like this one is. It's
Aw.
not as fancy. It's just black and white. But, yeah, I'll be glad to do that. Modern technology.
Yeah, I'll have it in seconds.
Light speed world. The water, Mr. Moore, I got a form from Seneca that we need to have signed by the landlord. Any other questions?
Email or text, Madam Chair.
Huh?
Email or text.
Email, please. Thank you.
Like I said, thank you for coming tonight and presenting that, and I know there's a lot of people eager in seeing something out there, so
Yeah,
that's.
we're getting a lot of positive feedback from the community.
That's great. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, we can go, back on the strategic plan. Thank you, Mr. Gibson. On ADA compliance real quick.
Yeah, thank you very much. I wanted to take this opportunity, if you don't mind, to present a idea that Mr. Blackwell has come up with out of the Oconee Economic Alliance as part of the Destination Oconee discussions they've been having about some of the projects He has identified a capability of assisting with the ADA restrooms at Chaw Ram that I wanted you guys to have an opportunity to review. He sent me a memo back earlier this month on means to accomplish some of the Destination Oconee plans using existing funding that we have. And one of those items that was on there was the Chaw Ram ADA restroom. He feels like with the some of the millage that he has in economic development this year, the remainder of the Destination Oconee grant, and contribution of local ATAX funds from the PRT Commission, that we could conceivably out of this year's budget pay for the Chaw Ram ADA restroom $285,000 using the available funding in his millage. We've got about a little over $500,000, $600,000 or so that have been designated for this year with nothing to be spent on. It's a miscellaneous projects. He's recommending that before this year runs out, we use that money in addition to the ATAX and to be able to do Chaw Ram ADA restroom, playground improvements for shades, Palmetto Trail contribution, and wayfinding signage to complete that project. It's part of their Destination Oconee discussions. I said in those millage monies, we would save about $150,000 of that. What we're proposing for the $150,000 is to complete the engineering on Sewer South phase, the next phase to get to exit 2, so we can submit it with the grant application in March. In order for us to apply, we've got to have construction drawings, cost estimates. We've got to have the sewer authority's got to do a cost analysis and a rate study, and we need the engineering. So I've authorized them to go ahead and start processing the engineering for the grant application for Days of Floyd. Chris Eliezer with Sewer Authority is going to drive that train for us since we're working with them to get the agreement in place. But I'd like to present that as an option for this committee to consider recommending to council is to go forward with Mr. Blackwell's plan here, and I'll of course get a copy of it to you if you want to discuss it further, so we can get those Chaw Ram ADAs done.
You need a recommendation to
I'd like
council?
for this committee to recommend to council as their normal procedure. I mean, obviously, if you want to discuss it further and go into more detail than what I just rambled through, I'd be glad to.
I'll be glad to make that recommendation motion, first stated. I think we've discussed those bathrooms enough to where the water's going the opposite way in the toilet.
And I know they appreciate that, and like, I just want to make sure I point out, we didn't spend it all. We did reserve it for some important projects like the Sewer South. Wanted it all, but I wouldn't.
Okay,
Second.
all right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Going to move to discussion and approval to recommend the purchase property bordering airport per FAA guidance.
Yes, sir. This is the first that this particular project has been introduced to the committee and or, council, of course. In the past, I don't know, Ms. Campbell, were you here when we purchased the property before at the airport? Paul may be the only one that's ever been through this process. So the FAA will come in and they analyze your approach zones, right? So they'll come in and look at your pie that we've seen before, the approach zone, and identify obstructions that need to be cleared. We've moved power lines, if you remember, we buried those. We've moved trees and things like that. Well, the FAA has identified another piece of property, and it's been identified before, but they will only buy one at a time as project money's starting to build up. Well, they've identified another property. It's 0.75 acres. It is a willing seller. The house and the property is about 750 feet from the runway N7, runway approach 7. So the FAA has identified this as a hazard zone because of the house. It falls within the RPZ the RPZ is a 1,000 by 17,000, 1,000 by 1,700 by 1,510 foot area. So this falls within that green RPZ zone. They're asking us to commence the purchase of that property so that that property can be cleared and the obstruction can be removed. Now, it's estimated that total relocation, total cost is about $245,000. The FAA pays 90%, and the South Carolina Aeronautics Commission pays 5%. There's only a local 5% match. We have about 170, 180,000 left in that airport settlement. Anywhere from 150 to 170, I can't remember the exact amount. But that's still remaining in that capital projects fund that we can use for our 5% match. Our 5% match can be less than 10 grand when it's all said and done. It is a reimbursable basis. It's estimated that we would be reimbursed by September 30th, so it'll all occur within the same budget year. So from a cash flow standpoint, it'll be a net zero, because we'll be reimbursed in the same year. W.K. Dixon drives this train. And the FAA has a property purchase division that works with them to see this through. The property owner is relocated at the expense of the FAA, so they have a real estate agent that assists them with finding another location, and it's a full service procedure. I would like permission from the committee, or like the committee to recommend to the full council that based on FAA requirements on the approach zone and their request and their funding, that we proceed with commence the purchase of this property. And it is right there, like I said, off the Shiloh Road. It borders the airport runway 7, fall within that approach zone.
Okay. Get a motion to approve.
So moved.
For a second. All right. Open for discussion. This has gone through the commission, our commission, everything like that?
I rarely bring you anything from the airport that has not gone through the commission. I always ask Jeff to do that for
Perfect. Okay. All right. Anybody else? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. I'm gonna move back into the magistrate's office discussion if we had anything else on there.
If you don't mind, I'd like to ask Mr. Carter to come up to the microphone, and just in case there's any questions, and, I mean, he's welcome to sit here or go up to the podium, either one. Thank you. They have submitted a letter of request to the county based on previous discussions with the city about the potential partnership. Now that they're ready to move forward, I believe they're ready to formally request the county's participation and a commitment to that effect. So if you'd like to do that verbally here today as well, Mr. Carter, you got the microphone, sir.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I think I've met most of you or had the privilege to in the past. As Mr. Mulder said, last year when this was sort of thrown out there as a possibility, we budgeted a sum of money for architectural programming study to evaluate a combined facility between the magistrate's office and City Hall, thinking there might be some economies in shared spaces like a city council chambers being the same thing as a court chamber, and conference room being a jury room, maybe a shared drive-through window, and things like that. So we thought it had merit. Of course, we're over halfway in the fiscal year now. We've been doing other projects, but like I said, we had about $15,000 that we'd set aside for to develop the concept further and provide cost estimates. When the new board came on in January, they asked that, we sort of get a commitment that there was a real interest now going forward, because we certainly think the architectural programming study and conceptual design can be completed before the end of the year, even though we haven't put an RFP out. But we just thought we might see if we're going forward on firm ground now. I don't know if the county was interested, if we would probably not move, but I think the magistrate's office, as he indicated earlier, Mr. Mulder, they need a better place. And I don't know that our police department don't need a better place. That's pretty much an energy inefficient building. I think it was the old Blue Ridge Electric Co-op building many years ago. Y'all may know more about the background than I do, but we're ready to move. We're having a retreat Saturday. We're going to discuss it. I just want to see if, we could get a pretty firm commitment now that we would have a partner somewhere on the realm that we had talked about a year ago, which was the fact the county, upon completion of the facility, would make a cash contribution to the project. I don't envision anything other than the police department, City Hall personnel being in that building. Our staffing needs will not be that large a building to begin with, but it'll probably be we have a lot of customer service, utility bills, people coming in, so you'll have some adequate floor space developed for that purpose. I don't know if I'm raising questions or answering them, but I can tell you we're ready to pretty much proceed if we have a willing partner here.
where will this be located?
Well, that's going to come up for suggestions. I do not think renovation of the existing building is going to be a possibility due to the energy inefficiency of that building. But the city has about 1.6 acres there. And the conceptual plan that was developed in 2015 showed the existing buildings being removed. And, we feel like there's adequate parking and adequate space to put that building on the existing site. Right there at the corner of Mimosa and Windsor.
So you can build the new one and still use the old one while the new one's being built?
That would be our plan,
And
yes.
then tear down the old one?
That's right, both existing buildings. That's the idea we're gonna try to that's the idea we're gonna work toward on Saturday, and I think folks will be open to it.
What's the total cost?
Well, the last time we had a study done, the total construction cost, and there was pretty generous contingencies, and there was about 1.6 million. I don't know if that would still hold. One of the things we talked about after we had this programming study done, up here I understand that some folks are using construction manager at risk, CM process for putting buildings out. We think that's probably going to be the budget somewhere on this project, existing 1.6.
So if we pay the 500, y'all would pay the additional 1.1 through Westminster? And that would be through your standard operating funds, or y'all bond up to?
Yeah, well, I really feel like we may go after one of those. This is my idea. Of course, nobody's approved that notion. These rural facilities grants through the rural development, public facilities loans, we may do that. We have these buildings we operate now are not very energy efficient. We feel like there should be some additional savings from energy use. Not that it'll retire the principal amount, but we feel like we'll end up financing it through that method.
So we would remove the building after the construction of this one?
That would be our, yes.
Is there, do y'all have any estimate on removing, or have we?
That was included in the 1.6 million.
That was included in the 1.6, because that's, I think, the last thing Westminster needs is another building that's not nobody.
That's not true, that's true. We need the parking
We
too.
want to clean it up and make the parking out of it. So I guess what you're stating is we would have the commitment letter, then y'all would go after the grant. Until that grant was finalized, there would not be any
Yeah, until they were
change.
commenced construction, we wouldn't pay anything. Obviously, we want to set some money aside in an assigned format on our balance sheet, once that's identified, for future reference.
Yeah. Our plan was if we had well, of course, we work in county staff, we got a conceptual plan and a program, space needs study, it feels like it meets both needs. We'll come back and get an even more firm approval, but right now, we just want to make sure that we have an interested partner here.
How much is the grant?
Well, we're going to get a loan, excuse me. I said grants, so this is a possibility, and I went through this recently before I moved here. If you take a loan with them, sometimes you can get equipment grants, like furnishings, but the primary financing vehicle will be a loan for us through rural development.
And the $500,000 number, where that came from was when we looked at an estimate to build a facility that we would need, it was upwards of $500,000. So we looked at that number as, okay, if we built something, that's what it would cost us. And we talked with them back then, and we said, well, that's what we're gonna have in it, so if you can make it work, then that's what we'll contribute, given the scope of your renovations. If you just add one room on there, obviously we're not gonna pay $500,000, but it would obviously have to fit in within the scope. And I think they're building something that's certainly within the scope.
And where do you suggest we take the money from?
Obviously, I haven't found it yet until I knew whether that was something that we wanted to commit to. We'll have, I think, 2 budget years to identify it, so I'll work towards it and see what we can come up with.
I guess my question is then, would it make sense for us just to build our Westminster Magistrate's office? Or, so there is separation of those functions, so they don't have to share the space? I'm trying in my mind to picture how the schedules are gonna work out and that kind of thing. Has that been mapped out?
When you say the schedules, you talk about coordinating construction, I mean.
No, I mean actual usage of the space.
Yeah, no, I think that's what this space needs study does, to show common areas that would serve all functions. Yeah, I think that was the purpose of it, is this first step that we're getting ready to go through. If there's a willingness to house it in this building, to see how those interrelationships would work between the city hall operations and a magistrate's court, and our own police department, by the way. Yeah, I think that's the whole purpose, to see if there isn't, what the economies are here for joint.
The obvious location is the council chambers / courtroom. So, for example, let's pretend this is a shared space. During the evenings, when they have their council meetings, they would have their council meetings there when court isn't going on. And they would have their council meetings on nights when we don't have night court. And then during the day, it would be used for a courtroom. So it would be a joint council chamber / courtroom. Then you
And
have,
I guess that's my question. Is that actually doable?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So your council or committees don't have meetings during the day so that there won't be conflicts with the court?
No, actually, we're trying that at the fire department right now. We actually, we schedule around county functions at the fire department. Yeah, I mean, we know that would be something we'd have to do. We'd see court schedules being much more inflexible than our own.
the judge and the clerk would have dedicated office
Office
spaces.
space, yeah,
You'd have dedicated office space for the attorneys to meet with their clients. You know, one of the things they'll study is the joint conference room. Can we use the conference room as a deliberation room for the jury instead of them going out on the front sidewalk? Can they use that as a deliberation room and then use it as a conference room? How does that schedule work? So, I mean, there are some areas that there still needs to be some study on, but I think from the main shared space, it works, and I think it'll work well. But there are some other areas I think.
There's certainly record custody areas that'll be totally separate, you know, for court records and city, you know, they'll be separate, but there'll be some areas where it'll be common space would work.
I guess my concern would be is, our hope would be that we would build this in the next 24 months. And would that fit in with what I guess with your budget through the city, y'all have put these payments into your budget and that's working?
We will, if there's an effort to go forward, we will. I mean, if there's absent the need to immediately house the police department and court functions, I don't know that City Hall is, but when we bring that need in, it would, I think, we have said before in our capital plan that we want to make that a priority if we could see a joint use facility. But yeah, I mean, I would think within 24 months, you know, construction begin, because again, our hope is to use that CM process, which usually is a lot quicker than traditional design bid or design build for that matter. And so, yeah, I mean, I would think we would be able to do it. I'll know more Saturday, but we just want to make sure that there was really true interest before we start putting money out there.
Yeah.
Because the plan's that we have is going to be inflexible if we don't, you know.
Yeah. I mean, I know we've kicked this can down the road years and years, and, you know, I'll be glad to make the motion per, finding the money in the budget to, spend $500,000 on a comprehensive partnership with the city of Westminster to, construct that.
Is there a time frame? I mean, are we talking about 5 years to build it? I mean, and I may have missed that part of the discussion, I apologize if I did, but are you looking at having it open within 24 months?
I think what I think this will happen, if this commitment comes forward, we'll do the conceptual plan, the space needs study that sets the program, the size of the building, and have it here for you folks to mutually agree with it. And of course, you've already given me a contact for somebody to work with county government. I think we'll have that done before the end of the fiscal year. And I think the eye would be that we would try to program it for construction in fiscal year 18-19. So, I mean, I really think we can do that if we use that CM method. Obviously, it's a lot quicker.
So we would at least know in the next few months, you know, by the end of the fiscal year, we would know whether you feel like you're going to move forward with it.
Yes, I do. Once this commitment's forthcoming, I do. I think.
I
they
mean,
will.
it's probably, you know,
So-
respect, I don't wanna be sitting here for 3 or 5 years from now, waiting for them to finance it, and
Right.
we still.
So I would think based on that, I will amend my motion to state that, you want to put a timeline on that to come back for us? So we're either deciding that we're going to be building by ourselves or with partnership. Is there a timeline that makes you comfortable? 6 months? We should be, I mean, that puts us into,
When would you anticipate you submitting your grant application to USDA, or loan
Well,
application to USDA? By the end of the calendar year, you think?
Oh, yeah, well, once we get this programming study with the cost estimates, which we will use to base our project on, I think we'll probably have something this summer to apply for a loan.
So
And
if
combination
we,
loan and grant, I won't give the idea that grant's gonna be, but
so if we put in there, it's for a 9-month commitment, that should give you plenty of time to get a loan application in, get your approval, get a loan application in, and then if for some reason you can't do it within 9 months, we can decide then whether we want to just build our own or not, depending on what their status is.
okay.
Does that make
So-
sense?
Makes sense. So, the amended motion will state that a 9-month, commitment to work toward a partnership with the city of Westminster to construct a magistrate/city hall, at the cost from the county commitment of $500,000 per finding the money in the budget. Recommendation to council. And you, I get a second.
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Wayne, did you vote, or are you going silent?
I said nothing.
All right. Mr. McCall, stay silent. All right. All right, we get the, next, we had a talk about the Foxwood Hills potential for sheriff's office substation. I'd, like to remove that from the agenda.
I concur.
Okay, I get a second on that? All right. All in favor? Aye. All right. We have no other business. Anything else we need, Mr. Mulder? You got a motion to adjourn? All right.